Hello, everybody, and welcome to Town Hall 15 of AIA's continuing series of weekly discussions. My name is Colleen Stovall, and I'm the Director of Programs and Events for AIA Miami, and I'd like to welcome you to the 15th in the series of Town Hall meetings. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce AIA Miami President and co-founding principal of Gurri Matute, Daphne Gurri. Could you say a few words, Daphne?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody's staying safe at home, if you're at home, or if staying safe at work. As Colleen said, I'm this year's president for AIA Miami, and it's truly been my pleasure to be serving the architectural community, and I'm very proud of what our organization has done, not only for our members, but for the community at large. We have been having continuous town hall meetings for the last 15 weeks since COVID-19 started, to be able to make sure that everybody stays engaged and to add value to our members and the community at large. So thank you for participating, and please continue to participate in our town hall meetings, which will continue as long as needed. Colleen, back to you.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, just some light housekeeping. I'd like to let you know that there are several events coming up for AIA Miami and MCAD. July 17th at noon will be the third in the Urban Redesign Series, and the discussion will center on urban parks and open spaces. July 23rd at 7 p.m. is our book talk with Jose Gelabert Navia on his lovely book on the about his return to Cuba after being in exile for over 50 years. July 24th is a new deadline for the AIA Miami Design Awards. Information for this is on our website, www.aiamiami.org. We have a lot of other events, and if you want to check out our website, again, it's www.aiamiami.org. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, and please feel free to submit your questions to everyone at any time via the chat feature on Zoom, and we'll try to get to them all at the end of the town hall. I'd like to ask that you keep yourselves muted and turn off your videos. This is going to save on bandwidth and will give us a smoother presentation. And if you forget, I'll mute you. This meeting will be recorded and will be available to view on the AIA Miami website after Friday, July 17th. Now I'd like to introduce today's panel of architecture students who are representing their university's architecture programs. We have the universities that are being represented are Florida International University, Florida Atlantic University, Florida A&M University, and the University of Miami are all in the house. First, I'd like to introduce and turn on your video and audio when I introduce you, Regine Swanson, who hails from Tampa, Florida, and is currently in her 4th year at Florida A&M, and is a member of the American Institute of Architecture Students Organization, and is the chapter president of Alpha Rho Chi, I think I said that right, or Chi, no, whatever, professional fraternity. She's currently the chapter president of Alpha Rho Chi, this C-shaped chapter, AIAS, and is a general member. I'd now like to introduce AIA Miami's intern, Stanley Evans, who's currently interning for us at the Miami Center for Architecture and Design. He's a graduate student studying architecture at Florida International University. He previously received a master's degree in hospitality management with a specialization in real estate development, and he has a bachelor's in hospitality management from Florida International University. He's a member of Black Architects in the Making and is a member of the National Organization of Minority Architects Students and the Alpha Pi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And next, I'd like to introduce Ryan J. Pierre. He is a transfer student from Palm Beach State College, the 2-year pre-architecture program, and he's going into the School of Architecture at Florida Atlantic University this fall, where he intends to pursue a combined degree in the Bachelor of Architecture, Master's in Urban Planning, as well as a minor in Disaster Management. At PBSC, he served as the AIAS president, worked on the AIAS National Finance Committee, and he's currently a member of the Phi Theta Kappa, and is working with some FAU students on starting a new NOMAS chapter at the school starting this fall. And he comes to us from he hails from Point Port-au-Prince, Haiti, but he spent his last 5 years in Coral Springs, Florida. And Tiffany Banks is representing the University of Miami. She's from Indianapolis, Indiana, and is a fifth-year architecture major at the University of Miami. During the 2019-20 school year, she served as the president at Alpha Rho, is a resident assistant at the Mahoney Pearson Dormitory, a student ambassador, and holds 2 teaching assistant positions, one for architecture course and the other for a summer scholars program that enables high school students to receive credits for a college level course in a 3-week period. So welcome everyone. What an impressive group you are. And I want to just jump in and I'll ask you some questions. What are your school's plans for the fall? Are you online, are you in person, or is it a combination? And Regine, let's start with you. What's going on with your situation this fall for school?
From what I understand, FAMU is working to be a hybrid schooling. So some classes will be not necessarily required in person, but they will be in-person options. And the rest of them, as majority of them, will be remote.
Okay, and Ryan?
Hi, the entire school is going to be online except for Design 1. I think they're doing this because new students need to know how the field is. But beside that, all the courses are going to be online.
And Stanley?
Yes, from my understanding, majority of the courses was going to be hybrid, but now I think they're going to transition all online for this fall semester. So everyone's trying to stay safe and keep their distance. So I'm excited about that.
Tiffany, what's UM doing?
Yes, they're currently exploring really 3 modalities, in-person learning, hybrid, and online only. And right now they're giving this the option. They feel unsafe or have a family health condition, elect to do online only, but they will have in-person classes, all in.
And so those of you who are working in kind of a combination class structure, how do you think that's going to work, and will you feel safe as in person? What do you think? How do you think that's going to go for you guys? Regine?
I believe that, I think it should be fine. They are requiring that like you wear masks to every class. They'll have vending machines that have masks in them. They'll offer them basically for free. So I feel like they really want to try to make it so that students can attend it and feel safe. For the most part, I think I would like to stay home, but that's just me.
And Tiffany, how do you think this is going to work for you? I mean, with the, the classes that may be in person or maybe online.
I'm more concerned about that, considering that my school is in Miami, Florida, and we're having a huge spike right now. I think that the school is going to do their best to space everyone apart, but I think that that might kind of inhibit the purpose of architecture school and working kind of in a group setting closely.
Okay, so that leads me to questions about studio. Like architecture students spend their time living in the studio. How is the transition from a studio setting, your traditional studio setting in architecture school, to a home environment? How has that affected your education? Tiffany, why don't you start with us?
I think that overall, I had amazing professors during last semester that really dedicated a lot of out-of-class time to us. I think that if I had have had different professors that really the in-person, well, not the in-person, the online face-to-face time only that scheduled class was allowed for, it wouldn't be enough time for me to learn. I feel like online learning poses additional difficulties that require additional one-on-one.
And Ryan, what about you?
Yes, at first it was difficult because everyone was adapting to the new normal, as we all say nowadays. But as time went by, I got used to it, and everyone started to know how to use it properly. And I think it was fine, except that we don't have our students and our professors constantly behind us, telling us if we're doing something wrong or not.
So it's maybe making you a little bit more independent in working. And Stanley, what about you?
Yes, I feel like the professors handled it well, allocating different times for each student, maybe 30 to 20 minutes, allocating just one-on-one time trying to understand the design and help out the best way they can. Initially, it was difficult, being able to be face to face, but with everything going on, we had to adjust accordingly. So I thought that was good to have that one-on-one time via Zoom.
And Regine?
I think when it came to having to do education online, it was almost like replacing studio with your own house, because it's like you stay in studio all day, and then now it's just I stay in my house all day. So I feel like it was I liked it, and I liked that like I had one-on-one time with professors. Like you usually have it in studio, but now it's like really one-on-one. Yeah.
And who else? Who did I miss on this question? I think everybody answered this particular one, because this is one that really interests me. So you don't think that you're losing anything necessarily from studio?
I can answer this one. So
Sure.
what I think we're kind of losing is, the capability of being able to converse with other students. The biggest thing for me is, learning from my peers. So being able to design in studio and being able to bounce ideas off of my classmates and vice versa is something that I truly do miss. Zoom kind of helps out a little bit, but it's not like one-on-one time with your classmates and being able to bond and being able to, think of ideas, on the spot and kind of expanding on that. So that's something I really do miss about studio.
Daphne, I think you know more about studio and your experience years ago in studio. How do you see this playing out studio-wise for these students? Do you think this is a great way for them to learn and adapt to it, or do you think that they are eventually going to have to try to force something to get back to the way they were?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting, the comments that I'm hearing, that you enjoy the one-on-one time, but that you miss the collaboration with the other students. And what a coincidence. That's exactly what's happening in the workplace. So when you work, especially the younger architectural interns, they really benefit the most from being in the office, because they're listening to all the conversations that are happening around them. So even though they might be engaged in their project specifically, they're listening to comments that somebody else might be having regarding a different project, and you're learning just by being in that environment. So I think for the young architectural interns, it's a shame for them. They can't be listening to more about what's happening in a different project. But at the same time, I think that everybody has adapted surprisingly well using Teams. I mean, we're using Teams all the time, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting. We're collaborating, and we're making the best that we can, so sometimes the technology doesn't work out well, but you manage, you work around it. Like yesterday, we had a Zoom call. We were working with our intern, who is a student at FIU right now, but she has an active role designing a project for Broward College. She needed feedback from the principals. Technology wasn't on our side. So she took pictures of her screen. The Revit was too heavy to load up through Teams. So we told her, okay, take a picture of your screen and text it to us, and then we'll work around it. And that's exactly what we did. So we were able to collaborate with her, and she was able to get feedback from the principals on the design. So it worked out, but it's not like it's a perfect thing. So I'm looking forward to the day that we'll be able to go back to have everyone in the office, but for now it is what it is.
And while we have you here, Daphne, I was going to talk about this a little later, but we might as well just dive into the question nobody's dealing with or wants to talk about, and that's internships and where, at the end of your education, what's coming. So maybe those are questions you can ask these people better than I, as far as, if you want a lead question on that, or maybe I can just ask them all and you can comment. Regine, what about internships? Have you heard anything? I mean, do you know of any changes of your programs?
I haven't heard necessarily if anything is anything like closing, but I've heard that like internships they're online or they're just not happening right now, or they're being like postponed, because I think the point of an internship is to be in the office and you get to hear everybody and you get help from other people. I don't want to say like I'm not incompetent, but like there's some things I just don't know. And there's some things you cannot figure out on the internet. Like I would be if I was a student, when I'm a student in school. It's one thing to ask a peer at school because you can't figure it out. But like when you're working, I feel like an internship is like, it's really important. You need that adult architect behind you, like helping.
Stanley, how do you feel about this whole situation?
Yeah, so I want to initially say I'm super grateful to be an intern at AIA Miami. You know, that opportunity really helped me out big time while in school. But outside of that, I'm trying to make myself valuable just in general across the board. So what I did was I started an independent research project, you know, discovering different facade systems that focus on terracotta, wood, fabrics, metal, aluminum, perforated panels, and GFRC. So I'm doing that independent study on the side by myself so that when I'm done with it, I can add that to my portfolio so that when I do present myself to the workforce, I can be valuable enough that I have this study already under my book and I'm ready to, you know, expand on that. So I just say, just trying to make myself valuable right now while I have this downtime. And then once everything cranks back up, you know, I can present myself accordingly.
Ryan, what about you? How are you feeling about the, weird world of internships right now?
Yes, currently, I'm gonna start my third year in at FAU. But last year I had an internship with an interior design firm in Del Rey, and it was really close to my school, but it was an hour away from where I live because I'm no longer in school. I couldn't go to the internship anymore, so I had to stop that. But I believe that during that time we have a lot of free time, meaning that we don't, since for example me, I don't need to drive to the place anymore, so I have an hour each day to put in learning another skills. For example, presentation skill, just like Stanley said, learning something else that's gonna make us valuable in the workforce later on.
Mm-hmm. And Tiffany?
Yes, I've heard things similar to Regine, that internships are being postponed or not happening at all. I think that something that is missing right now is that one-on-one mentorship that really occurs through internships, where you have a boss or a colleague that really takes you under their wing and really instructs you in what's going on and helps you get a basic understanding in the real world.
Mm. So Daphne, hearing these young people speak about their kind of hopes and fears, what do you have to tell them about internships, the state of internships now as you've seen them?
Yeah, well, it's what you're experiencing is true. I was telling Colleen before I got on the call, we ourselves had a situation where we interviewed somebody back in February before COVID-19 started. And then to everybody's surprise, we had the nationwide lockdown, and we had offered her a job to start at the end of her semester in April. And when April came around, it was not feasible to have her come in because everybody was working remote. So we kept on telling her, don't despair. Come, call us back. Call us back. It'll happen when it's safe to happen. And she ended up starting when Mayor Jimenez allowed the county to kind of enter phase 2. And then we started allowing people to come back to our office. But it didn't make any sense to bring in an intern that needs to really sit next to somebody side by side to learn so much about the office, how the office works and where files are kept. And then not to mention how to work on Revit, because working on Revit in school is completely different from working on Revit construction documents for permit. So, that passed and she's working now. So we did, start her up. And we started 2 people, brand new, in the midst of this COVID-19. So it has been a challenge to get the new people to learn, but we're making the best of it. So the second person that we started has been learning Revit, sharing some time with a co-worker that's working from home. So again, they do teams, and if she gets stuck on the Reddit, she does a team phone call, and the more senior person is coaching her through it. So it is something that I think at this time everybody has to be patient. Be patient with yourselves and know that it's temporary, however long temporary may be. Hopefully it's not longer than a year. But whatever the temporary situation is, it's temporary. And what I love that I'm hearing from you guys, Stanley, and some other people on the panel, is that you're talking about how you can create value to yourself by taking this time. That's extremely important. When you have downtime, one of the things that we look to when we're hiring people is we look to see what did that person do during the time that they were unable to be engaged in school or whatever. That's very important because it says a lot about the person's self-initiative, their drive, their willingness to, and their ability to mitigate through challenges. Because architecture is a tough career. So by you doing that, I'm very proud to hear that. I'm very, very proud to hear that you guys are thinking about adding value to yourself. That shows leadership, and that is the right thing to do. That's going to make you stand out from other candidates. So kudos. Good job.
Thanks, Daphne.
Thank you.
So let's go a little bit away from the architectural school aspect of what we're talking about and talk a little bit about what Daphne was alluding to a little bit was I guess I don't know if you still call them extracurricular activities. I noticed a lot of you are members of fraternities or sororities, professional organizations. So let's hear a little bit about what you're doing outside of school that is going to build your value in ways that you can interact with your peers. I'm going to start with Regine. What are you doing and what are you involved with?
Okay, so I am involved in AIAS. I'm a general member, so I just kind of, for that one, I pay attention. I was vice president last year. My focus right now is Alpha Rho Chi, which is professional fraternity. I'm the president of it, and we're trying to figure out how we can connect the architecture students specifically to so they can bond, because we now know that not everyone will be on campus. We're not going to be in studios often. You know everybody, you know most people in the building when you're an architecture student, I feel, at least at FAMU. So we're trying to focus on how can we have virtual events so that we also get to know one another. We're not strangers. We have a group chat where every single student in architecture is in. And every year we have the freshmen, we go to the freshmen, we introduce ourselves, and we add them to the group chat so they never feel alone. Like if the building's locked, we can open a door for them. It's stuff like that where I feel like we're trying to, how can we do this online, and how can we do this virtually, or how can we do this in a way that social distancing is being respected. So right now we're trying to figure out, in accordance to how FAMU wants us to work as well, how can we do that so that students don't feel so lonely, or they don't feel like they don't have a community, when architecture students are a community.
Mm-hmm. It's a team sport.
yeah. So we're working hard on that, actually, because it's so important. My first friends were architecture students and not other people.
Stanley, what about you? And also, are you doing anything with these projects you're working on outside of school that, for the community? And then what are you doing with your peers?
So yes, so I'm involved with the National Organization of Minority Architects, the South Florida chapter. Right now, we're trying to make sure all of the schools have specific chapters there with FAU, FIU, and UM. So being able to be the membership coordinator for that organization is very helpful for me. Being able to network and meet all these different kind of people, going towards architecture as well. Outside of that, I'm also part of BAM, which is Black Architects in the Making, which is ran by AIA Miami as well, a mentoring program that I'm super proud to be a part of. Being able to mentor younger high school kids is also very important, being able to have that representative be a shining example of something that you can possibly do in the future. With NOMA, we just completed a national competition for the San Francisco housing competition, affordable housing competition, which was a very great experience, being able to understand what the issue is on that side of the country, and being able to produce something here in South Florida just with our computers and being able to communicate through Zoom, which I thought was a very helpful process for me becoming an architect. So I thought that was very great.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan?
Yes, I
Okay.
can go.
Are you involved in other organizations outside of your school?
Yeah, yes, I am. I'm part of the AIS at the school, like at PBSC, and I'm also getting involved with, because I'm transferring school, I'm also getting involved with AIS FAU. And last year I was working with AIS National Board on the finance side, but this year, because of everything that's going on in the country, I reached out to the director of architecture at FAU to start a new NOMAD chapter. And since then, he put me in contact with AIS president and other people at FAU. And because of that, I was able to get some of my peers at Palm State College and FAU to link together to form a new chapter. And we are also working with Stanley. Like yesterday, we had a meeting with the NOMAD South Florida chapter, and we are working on getting everyone involved in South Florida region, specifically to tell them that they have a voice and they can speak, and the country is listening to what they have to say.
That's wonderful. And Tiffany, what about you? You're busy, I think.
So last year I was president of Alpha Rho Chi, the Agamedes chapter at And right now what we're doing is really just trying to acknowledge and validate what the students are going through. So we have a huge group chat and we have Zoom meetings, and it's not being in terms of housekeeping, it's just how are you in the moment right now? What are you going through? We know that it's difficult emotionally, economically, health-wise, and this is just a space for you to vent and feel safe. So I think that's important. And then also we're trying to come up with a plan of how we were going to help the incoming freshmen meet and socialize with upperclassmen. That's so important, having that peer mentorship.
And one thing I didn't ask you all, and maybe this is a good time to do it. I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit, and we'll start with you, Tiffany. Where do you see your career taking you? What do you want to do with your degree once you get it? Which degree are you getting? And where do you want to take it?
Interesting. So I am getting a 5-year bachelor's of architecture. And then currently I've been spending the summer studying for the LSAT. Hopefully I'm going to apply to law school and attend law school next fall.
So with your architecture degree, you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, what do you want to do with that? Why law school?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to focus on real estate law and historic preservation. And I really think that having a law degree is going to be something that really supplements and helps my architectural career and education.
Oh, that's amazing. Ryan, what about you?
Yes, right now this summer I'm getting my real estate license, because I noticed that from articles and stuff like that, I noticed that one of the major problems in the field is that our clients put limitations on architects, and I'm currently getting my bachelor in architecture right now. So I'm trying to combine those two to show real estate developers that what we are doing is beneficial to the community. It's not only about money, but it's about the impact that architects have on the community. So that's what I'm doing right now.
And Regine?
I am going to be getting my bachelor's in architecture, and I went to get my master's in urban development because I see that the way like these cities work, especially now that we're in quarantine and people want to be outside, especially like well, we don't live in cities. Not everybody has a city or a park where it's easy to walk around. It started because I used to volunteer a lot in community centers. So I helped children. I did distributed food, so things like that. So I decided like this type of building, this makes community. And I feel like community there isn't much of a community without a building. So why not be a part of making the building?
Oh, that's great. So what do you want to do with this, with your degree, with where are you going?
I haven't decided. I would like to transfer to North Carolina when I graduate. I want to be a part of a firm that, designs that does urban development mainly. And I eventually want to teach back at FAMU, but my heart right now is set on urban development.
And Stanley, I think you're just like a perennial student. I think you don't want to work at all. I think you just want to be in school forever.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah. But my previous degree was in real estate development, and I worked for a real estate development firm before starting architecture school. But my overall goal is to become an architect, a licensed architect, and then possibly become a real estate developer. So that's like my ultimate goal right now with this degree.
Where do you see, like, what kind of development are you interested in? Anything specific, or
Well,
just?
definitely affordable housing. I definitely want to focus on affordable housing. Growing up, being able to look at the different developers coming into my community and changing, the full aspect of a community just with a few buildings. I want to go ahead and make a huge impact on my community and going back to my hometown and doing that. So.
Wow, this is something I should have done at the top of this, but I want to say that in putting this panel together, we asked professors from each of these schools who they thought were people who were going to make a difference and people who could speak well and who really had a lot going on. And you guys are the dream team. You're the people who are the first recommended, and we're just so thrilled to have you guys here. To hear what you want to do with your future is very inspiring to all of us. So talking about where you guys are, let's talk a little bit more about maybe the student body in general. Like, how do you think this whole online technology and the leaning towards that, how is that affecting underprivileged students? Have you talked to anybody who, maybe it's disadvantaging them by not having maybe, the bandwidth and the equipment and stuff? Stanley, have you had any experience with that? And do you think that this will affect architectural education?
Yes, I have a few classmates who, with studio, the importance of studio was like a safe haven for us. We became a family over time, being able to help each other out here and there. They're one of my closest friends now. But the educational aspect of it, not being able to have build physical models, not being able to do 3D printing. These things were crucial to our learning experience with the different projects we were doing in studio. Understanding space, understanding how the light hits the building at a certain angle, the different scales of the different site, being able to have those things on hand in studio was very crucial for our education. So I know a lot of the students are really, really trying to voice that and understand that, that is a huge loss for us. But outside of that, I feel like we're adjusting accordingly, but that is something that we're still trying to get over.
Mm-hmm. Regine, do you think any students are kind of being held back because they may not have the same access as everyone else? I know that an architectural education is very expensive. How do you feel about that aspect? And is there a way maybe that the university can address it?
So I do absolutely agree. Architecture is way more expensive than I originally thought. I've had friends, unfortunately, like they've had to switch majors because the amount of money just isn't, like amount of money for about a better computer, materials, just to use the latest printer, like it costs money. So I've definitely seen how cost has affected students' ability to learn and do what they actually want to do. I think I know FAMU specifically has a laptop lending program where if you tell them you're having problems, that they will get you a laptop for you to borrow for like the semester. And they have some, I don't know if every school has this, but like if you show that you've been struggling because you need stuff suddenly for school, they will, like, you can get money for that so that they're trying to cover the cost as best as possible because this is such a unexpected thing. Personally, I had a study abroad canceled. I went to France for the first time and I had to go home very suddenly. And if I wasn't able to use my computer. Like, luckily I wasn't affected that as harshly as some students were, because if I didn't have my computer, I wouldn't be able to keep in contact with my professors. That I feel like COVID is affecting more than just not being able to go to school. And I think partially it might be a little bit better because now we're not spending all this money on materials. You could just have to use the computer, if that makes sense. Like, I could spend a good $50 on materials to make a model, but now it's just like, how well can I present my work on my computer? They're not asking for models right now.
And Ryan, what about you?
Yes, I've known some people who struggled because they didn't have the equipment and they didn't have a space at home to work with the architecture project they have. But as Regine said earlier, our schools have some computer learning program, and they have, like, if you need some money, there's an application you can fill on the school website where they're gonna lend you money to help you through everything you need, through everything that's going on right now. Yeah.
And Tiffany, what about you? What does UM do for students? Did I already ask you this?
No, something that I've been very concerned about, just because we've lost so many resources by transitioning online. I mean, our libraries are closed, our tutoring centers are closed, our computer labs are closed, our professors' offices are closed, and there really aren't comparable online substitutions for these things. I think that they're really important and fundamental because they kind of provide that base level ground, regardless of background, income, financial situation, everyone would have access to those resources. But this is something I'm particularly concerned about now because this is going to be one of the most unstable home life situations for many students, especially because they're learning online. So we know that around the time school starts, unless further legislation goes forth, that there's going to be an increase in foreclosures and evictions. We know that students have lost their jobs or have a parent lose their job. We also know that people are struggling from losing family members and friends. And I think that really, without having these support resources implemented in some type of substantial way, that at-risk students may fall through the cracks because of a situation that largely isn't in their control.
Yeah, that's true. So, we've spoken about things, within your architecture program and things in the community that you can do. So where do you guys, let's see, I guess I wanted to say, I don't know, Daphne, do you have anything you wanted to ask them?
Well, actually, I just want to say it's more like a comment, that I'm really inspired and very excited to hear that so many of you on the panel are thinking about going above and beyond your 5-year degree. So studying law, studying urban development, all those things are great because we know that getting a bachelor's degree is no longer enough. It's not enough. You want to be able to round out your experience. Architecture gives you a good foundation. If you're able to get some kind of specialization, like historic preservation or maybe even healthcare, I think some FIU has a program for the interiors. Those kinds of specializations add value to your qualifications and make you valuable to a company. So that's really, really very, very important. And I'm really excited to hear that you guys are doing that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you guys that are on the panel today, I'm going to expect to see you in 20 years have your own firm, or be in a leadership capacity in a large company, or have maybe you become in the public sector and have a role in changing fundamentally how the city designs their public projects. So you guys are going to be the leaders of the future. And I know that you will be there. I know it because I was there too. So when I was going through, just a quick story, I was going through COVID-19, as many people do. go through all the rummaging their closets. Let's see what I can throw out because I got nothing else better to do. So I found some very interesting things that I had kept from when I was a student at the University of Miami. One of them was a pamphlet. There was a promotional flyer for the university, and there it had profiled 4 or 5 students. And those 4 or 5 students, they became business owners. They became the leaders. One is Mike Kerwin, Derek Smith, and myself, and a couple of other people that were in the pamphlet back 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And it just shows to show you that if you're in a leadership capacity now, you're leading your Phi Theta Kappa, your sorority groups, you're active in NOMA, you are active in the AIA student chapter, all those things that you guys are doing now are indicators that you're going to have a leadership capacity sometime down in the future. However your future develops, whichever way you want it to develop, I am sure of that in 20 years, you guys are going to be in a leadership capacity. So that, again, encourages me. The other thing I want to say is do not get discouraged. So when I was rummaging out through my papers, I was a 3rd-year student, and I found when I was looking for a job and I couldn't find one. And I actually wrote on a piece of paper 54 names of companies that I had contacted, and I got 53 no's. 53 no's until the 54th company said yes, and then the list stops right there. So do not let yourself be discouraged when you hear a no right now. You keep going. You keep doing what you're doing because you're going to get there. Your persistence is going to get you where you want to get in life. So let yourself have 54 no's. The 55th is going to be the yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I don't see any questions. If anyone has any questions for the panel, please send them in the chat feature on Zoom right now and address them to everyone, and we will get to them in just a moment. We only have a few minutes left. But while we're waiting for any questions, I'd like to ask each of you what you would say right now about yourselves if you were looking at a possible employer. You know, during this time, I mean, just give me something. I'm going to start with you, Regine. Tell us why, you know, why they should hire you and what you have going on for you. I mean, just give me a little bit of, I know I'm throwing this at you, a little bit of an elevator pitch. You're here. You might as well use this time wisely. Regine?
Well, I can say that I definitely am one that likes to keep busy. You will never hear that I'm bored. And because I feel like for architecture specifically, there's so many things you can explore. And I feel like I am trying, during the quarantine, I've tried to do them all, it seems like. I've made some furniture, I've done some upholstery, I've tried to design stuff. Like I'm working on my portfolio. I feel like for me personally, like I'm just a person, I'm a go-getter. Like if I see something, I might as well do it because I have all this time now. So I'm trying to make the best of the situation. I want to be as I don't want to say jack of all trades, but a little bit of everything, so that if I decide that maybe architecture isn't for me or teaching's not for me, then I can say, well, with my architecture degree, I tried this, I've joined all these networks, why not use it so I can try maybe another passion. Like I feel very passionate about what I set my mind to, and luckily architecture has been on my mind since like 9th grade.
That's well, you're well-rounded. Stanley, what about you?
What I would say to an employer is that number one, I'm a student. So either it's learning from you, learning in school, or learning from my peers. I'm always willing to learn something more every day. Just based off of my past degrees, I'm willing to learn everything from hospitality to real estate and now architecture. I want to be the most well-rounded person for you and the firm. So I'm here to learn as much as possible, and whatever you need from me, I'm here for you.
And we've found that, Stanley, with you interning with us. Ryan, what about you? What would you say?
I'd say that I love learning first, and two, I love challenges. if it's not challenging, I'm not gonna have the passion to do it. That's one of the reasons why I like architecture so much, because it's so challenging. It pushes you above and beyond. And in whatever I want to do, and I set my mind to do it. If I wanna run 1,000 miles, I run 1,000 miles. If I wanna read 1,000 books, I'll read 1,000 books. Like whatever I set my mind to do, that's what I do, and I never settle for less.
Thank you. Tiffany, what about you?
Yeah. Well, first, and I would say that I am incredibly driven. There is no situation that I can't overcome. In the past, I feel that I work best with groups, but I also transition well into one-on-one individual. I love research. If you would give me a stack of books, everything, and have it ready for the next day. And I would, another thing I always have is I always bring positive energy to the office and to the work.
That's great. Daphne, do you have any questions at all for them? Because I think we're.
No, I think what I'll say is that the two things that you really need to take away is you need to believe in yourself. You cannot allow anybody to change your thought process, your dreams, your lofty dreams. No, not even a family member, a parent, a boyfriend, girlfriend. Don't allow anybody to tell you that you can't do something. That's number one. So keep your lofty goals. You can have drive, but you also need to have self-confidence. If you don't have the two, doesn't matter the drive you have. If you don't believe in yourself, you're gonna probably disappoint yourself because of yourself, because you hold yourself back. So don't allow yourself to be in a predicament where you feel like you don't have confidence in yourself. You have to have self-confidence. On a more practical note, if you want to get an internship with an architectural firm, it's very important that you learn Revit. So learn Revit. There's lots of free tutorials that you can do. Lynda.com, which I think is now part of LinkedIn. Please get yourself familiar with Revit if you want to get an internship, which you do need it if you're going to ever come and become a licensed architect and get a job at an architectural firm. That is a skill, that is a qualifying skill that eliminates your competitors. So make sure that you become very proficient in Revit to the best of your ability, because you will come in with a humble attitude, with a willingness to learn, and that's all you need.
That's great. So I'm going to ask each of you if you have any last thoughts or any last thing to share. And I wanted to thank you all so much. This is an inspiring panel, and you guys are the future, I think, of architecture. So Regine, any last thoughts to share with us?
I don't believe I do. I just want to say that I hope everyone's is keeping their head up. I know things are looking a little rough, but you got to find the beauty in something.
Stanley, what about you? Any last thoughts for the panel and the audience?
Yeah, so as a closing statement, I just wanted to let everyone know that right now in the United States, there's only 13% of African-American architects. And I believe that everyone on this board is capable of being a future architect. And I'm excited to see the type of work, the type of impact, and, the type of collectiveness that we have together as one, to increase that number and to persuade others as well to be architects in the future. So that's my closing statement.
Thank you. Ryan, any last words for us?
To conclude, I'd like to say that it doesn't matter what comes your way, you have to go through it, because by avoiding it, you're not learning from the situation. For example, COVID, we cannot run from it anyway, so we have to go through it and learn something, because don't ever see something as a failure, but as a lesson. That's it.
Thank you. And Tiffany?
Yes, I'd just like to piggyback off of Stanley about diversity. In particular, 0.3% of all licensed are Black women. So I just think that it's important that we encourage diversity in schools, elementary, middle school. I have only met one other Black woman that was an architect, and so I just think that it's important that we represent and let everyone know, what their opportunities are.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
wonderful. And this panel, I mean, we just asked for the best and brightest, and you guys are it. So it's just amazing and encouraging. My foster son studied architecture at FAU, and I believe he was the only Black person in the whole program, only one. So this is just wonderful to see. And thank you all for participating and for sharing your thoughts and representing your schools. Your professors and your schools must be very proud of you, and they're lucky to have you in their classes. And Daphne, thank you so much for adding your perspective on the terrors of getting an internship, or looking forward to trying to find a job that can't be easy. But as Daphne said, just be patient. It's going to pass, or the new normal will come upon us, and we'll figure it all out. Daphne, any last thoughts for them?
No, I think they did a great job. I'm inspired. So very, very happy for all of you. And I look forward to seeing a very bright future for each of you.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and there will be no town hall next week, but the week after we will announce the topic on the website, AIAMiami.org. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we really appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye everybody, thank you.